Welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net, fellow babies. I'm Michael Pachter, and this show costs money to produce. I get none of it. Shane is barely making ends meet. We need you to be a Patreon patron. That's pretty easy. Go to Patreon and look up SIFTD, and you will find us. If you have an Amazon Prime account, we can get supported. All you have to do is link it to your Twitch account. Costs you nothing. So Twitch Prime link to Amazon Prime. Description in the show. The instructions are in the show description below. Finally, if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe on YouTube. All those things get you Pachter Factor love in real time, and we appreciate it. If you are watching this and you don't pay anybody anything and you don't have Amazon Prime, I understand you don't have any money. You're getting it late, and you're getting it free because that's my insistence that we actually give everybody access. But since you're getting my efforts for free, give back some love into the pack. I would love a follow on Twitter at Michael Pachter, and tell me on Twitter that I shamed you into it. I will give you a shout out. Okay, let's get on to today's question. Our question today from Patreon from my buddy Jerry Gonzalez. Both Microsoft and EA purchased indie developers only to shut them down if they underperform. Sony did this with Evolution and recently closed its Japan studio. Very few can buy their freedom back like Bungie or IO Interactive did. So if you're a fan of Housemarque's games, it's a good thing that Sony bought it. When big companies buy indie developers, it's good for the industry in general. I think it's a really good question, and I wish I had an answer, but I really don't know. EA back in 2008, I think it was, they bought Pandemic and BioWare. They shut Pandemic down pretty quickly, like a year later. BioWare's still around, but they've lost everybody that mattered that I ever knew who worked there. The founders both left. The heads of each of their studios, 3 different heads of studios left. So I don't even know if it's the same company. They essentially made an IP purchase. And, that's been kind of the par for the course on acquisitions for most of the industry. I would say that Sony stands out. The handful of developers that they bought, they've actually managed to keep the talent. So, I don't expect anybody at Insomniac who matters to leave. Like, I think that was a great acquisition, and I think those guys are going to stay intact and be super productive. Open question on Housemarque. I don't know. I don't know how important the individual, studio head and executive producers are versus the talent, and I don't really know what Sony has planned for the IP. I think companies don't buy studios solely for IP, and I don't think it makes economic sense to pay for a studio and then shut it down. I think the Pandemic thing by EA was just a mistake. So it's a pattern if you buy a studio and it doesn't work. But the flip side of that is Microsoft bought Rare in 2001 or something, and they're still going strong even though they haven't made any money in 20 years. So some studios have a better approach. I answered on a prior show that Microsoft has a good reputation for treating developers right. So I expect that Microsoft will treat developers right. Activision does kind of quiet stuff where they shift responsibilities among studios. So Toys for Bob turns into kind of a port studio instead of an original studio. And that's okay. Those guys are still around. And they kind of just fold them in and have them do other things. And Sledgehammer gets kind of managed by Treyarch, but they're still making games. And so Infinity Ward's essentially being managed by Treyarch as well, but Respawn's managing more than one studio. So I think that Microsoft, if rather than give up, will likely push these indies under guys who might be able to help them. And I think that with companies like Bethesda, which is Bethesda ZeniMax, a bunch of studios, Arcane is in there. I mean, there's a bunch of smaller guys in there. I think there's plenty of room for people to learn. And I got to say, not that I expect that they'll make a great game, but if you can work for Brian Fargo in Exile, or you can work for Tim Schafer, or work for Fergus Urquhart, those 3 guys have forgotten more about games than I will ever know. So if you get an opportunity to work with those guys, you're working with 3 of the best game makers who ever lived. And that's what Microsoft's creating. So I actually think, if nothing else, they just want legends, to work there and come up with ideas. You wait until you see Psychonauts 2. Like, my God, Tim Schafer, those guys are so good. Like, that guy, he's creative and innovative, and he's never sold a lot of units of anything. You remember Brutal Legend? But it was fun. So, I mean, he makes fun games, and you can't teach fun. but you want to work for a guy who makes fun games, because ultimately you'll end up making fun games too. So I think Microsoft's going about it right, and I actually think Sony's pretty good with its acquisitions, but I've never played a Housemarque game, so I don't actually know what Sony's going to do with them. I expect Sony's going to leave them alone and let them run the thing. I don't even know who runs studios. It's kind of gone back and forth. It was Shu Yoshida, then it was Sean Layden, and now is it back to Shu or somebody? Oh, it's Herman Hulst. Yeah, he's got a good reputation too. That guy's supposed to be actually really good. So I don't know, but I expect that, the thing I like about Sony is that Sean wasn't really one, but I heard Sean was really good to work for as a developer. But Herman Hulst is a developer. So I think developers are sensitive to the egos and the needs of other developers and treats them right. And that was Matt Booty at Microsoft. I think that developers are sensitive, and I think that they want to be valued, and they want to work for somebody who treats them right. And Matt Booty at Microsoft treats people right. Shu Yoshida at Sony back in the day treated people right. Sean Layden treated people right. I think Herman Hulst treats people right. So I expect that Sony's going to manage these acquisitions super well, because I think that they respect developers. They recognize that the creators of the content are what's important to keep the content flowing. So I expect that they will manage this stuff well, but again, don't know for sure. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor. And if you're a Patreon patron or an Amazon Prime member who linked his Twitch Prime account, or a YouTube subscriber, we thank you for your patronage. We're getting paid. The Twitch Amazon thing costs you nothing. You're already paying for it, and Amazon will give us money. So that's an easy link. Follow the instructions in the show description below, and you'll get a little scrolling ticker that calls you out and says, way to go. Shouts you out. That way to go. Thanks for supporting us. If you can't afford to support us, I get it. You're watching on YouTube a week late for free. Appreciate that you're interested in what I have to say. Follow me on Twitter. You'll get more of what I have to say at Michael Pachter.